Hello and welcome to Module 6 on Development of Instruction for Online Course. In this module, we'll cover the design principles for courseware development, the organizational structure for the course, as well as the development and assessment of instructional materials and resources for course purpose. In our previous module, we discussed the design phase in the instruction design process of online course design and development. We also cover the importance of alignment of the course design, particularly learning objectives and assessments. And how do you do this? First, we want to ensure our course objectives relate to student performance. That is, what students will be able to do at the end of the course. Secondly, we want to design activities that allow students to participate and practice their knowledge and skills gained throughout the course. Finally, we want to create assessments that collect evidence about students' learning in the course. Now that we review what we covered on our previous module, let's take a moment and discuss what the development phase entails as part of what you're going to be doing in this module. Development. Development is the phase in which production begins. By now, you should have a structure and flow of the course content. For example, you have a sequence for the instruction and how the learners will move from the first to the last module of the course. You should also have an idea of the media you will implement in this course. For example, videos, PDFs, animations, and etc. With all this information from the design, your goal now is to develop the actual components of the course. For example, the modules, the instructional videos, the activities, the assignments, the quizzes, all the information that will enrich the content of your module. As you work to develop your course modules, you will need to decide the course structure and what it's going to look like. In our readings, you'll find different strategies and ways to structure the course. My recommendations are: first, follow multimedia principles as you plan the course structure. For example, personalization, segmenting, multimedia, modality principles, just to name a few. You could start considering using those principles to design the layout, the content, and how everything is going to look like. Secondly, use your learner's characteristic as have reference to the design. Also, design a structure according to interface design principles. Additionally, when developing the module, inform the learners of the goals and objectives for the module and ensure that the activities developed lead to achieving these outcomes. These are guidelines that can help you as you start structuring your course design. A foundational model for design and instruction in our field is the 9 events of Gagne. Gagne was an educational psychologist, and his model was generated based on his observations of instructors and teachers. He examined effective strategies that instructors and teachers use in their instructions, which include gaining attention of their students, using certain strategies that can actually hook the students to the content that the teacher or the instructor is presenting. These instructors and teachers also inform their learners of the objective. What was the goal of the lesson? They also stimulated prior knowledge, so they're always trying to make sure that students could remember previous informations from lessons or other content in the course. They also presented a stimulus, which is the actual content that the students were learning at that day or in that module. They also provide guidance throughout that process as the students are actually learning that content. They were coached, they had scaffolding that was actually preparing them to conduct or perform the activity on their own, which then gets to the next point, which is like eliciting performance. So students had a moment to actually practice that performance on their own without the help or assistance of the teacher or the instructor. Then the students had an opportunity to get feedback, receive feedback on their performance. So what were some of the things that they need to improve? What were some of the characteristics that they had to pay attention as they were practicing on their own? And then they had a chance to assess, the teachers had a moment to assess the students' performance and see in what ways they could improve, in what areas that maybe the content was not covered as as intended. And the last thing is enhancing retention and transfer, which is like what are ways that the teachers created to make sure that students could retain that information on their long-term memory, which that is actually one of the difficult strategies to do. So, for example, one way is as you're towards the end, is like trying to recall what the students can remember, or what are some of the key things or key aspects that they could remember from that lesson. Overall, Gagne's 9 events of instruction is a framework to prepare and deliver instructional content. These events can be modified to fit both the content to be presented as well as the student's level of knowledge. Although you're not required to follow Gagne's 9 events of instruction to design and develop your module, you'll be asked to justify any evidence model that you use for your design. This might come from your PLC activity up for our Module 6. So as you're looking for articles or identify articles that are related to your project, you might also want to identify the modules or the models that these researchers and scholars are using to actually lay out and design their instruction. Now that we've talked about the 9 events of Gagne, take this moment to practice. Using the 9 events of instruction as a guideline, review maybe 2 modules from your own course and check if they follow the events of instructions. Consider recommendations that you might be able to use or they might adapt for your own course and modules. Thanks for watching this video and happy learning with Module 6.